Hello and welcome to our series on coaches who specialize in supporting women. And I'm really excited today to be able to talk to Ann Anderson. She is a transformational life coach and a best-selling author of her book, Butterfly Uprising. She also has a really compelling story. Ann, welcome.
Thank you so much, Emmylou. I really appreciate you having me on your show today. I'm so excited. I know we've been trying to do this for a minute. Thank you so much for having me.
I am honored. And would you be willing to share your story? I'm so impressed with the obstacles you have overcome, the example you are of persevering.
Thank you so much. Sure, I would love to. As you know, I've had a very tumultuous childhood. Rather, no childhood. I had to be a mother to my mother, a wife to my stepfather, mother to my younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 7 children, born in Houston, Texas, raised in Louisiana. And for years, I blamed myself for being raped. In 1966, I was molested by my stepfather at age 10 years old until I was 16. It was like, all of a sudden the lights were turned off and I just became a shell of the once vibrant, happy, full of life little girl that I was before that. And then living a life in fear, feeling ashamed and feeling a lot of guilt and hopelessness. But and a lot of times, for the most part, feeling very suicidal, not wanting to live, just very disconnected. In my 10-year-old mind, though, the only thing that I could think of was taking a handful of pills or something like that, or using a knife. But instead, I end up becoming, at 18, becoming a flaming drug addict, functional drug addict. And I basically used drugs as an emotional blanket. That was my numbing device. At age 27, I found myself divorced, a single parent. In 1988, I met who I thought was the man of my dreams. He was 6'4", 250 pounds, looked like he stepped out of a GQ magazine. I was 5'2", 127 pounds at that time. And, instead he, like I said, he ended up being my worst nightmare. It was the best of times and the worst of times for me at the same time. The saving grace at that time was the privilege I had of being a dancer for a local ballet company, which was my life at the time. And so on this one particular day, in my haste to get home, actually, I accidentally brought home the African skirt that I had borrowed to perform in with me. And moments later, the guy who was the owner of the costume called to arrange to meet with me to get his skirt back. And my boyfriend at the time overheard that conversation. And before I could get off the phone good, he threw his beer can and hit me upside the head with it and commenced to beating me until I was unrecognizable. Stopping only once just to run upstairs and grab my gun, to come back and put it to my head, threatening to kill me and dump me in a lake where no one would ever be able to find my body. And, so, and the reason that he did it was just because I had the boldness to continue to participate in doing something that I loved and was doing before we met. So no one knew that domestic violence was my life during that time. I used to be one of those women judging, saying that I would never let a man put his hand on me. And I was the one who jumped in front of my stepfather to protect my mother when I thought he was about to hit her when I was 10 years old. But here I am, I find myself with his hands around my neck, choking me until I couldn't breathe. And all the thing that I could do, I saw my life flashing before my eyes. And I just prayed to God for him to save me this one last took his hands off me. And so I end up spending the next 6 months planning my escape from that situation, and which was the beginning of my life. It was the beginning of resilience and self transformation. That's when resilience and self transformation became my story, and I realized that I had to become my own rescue. And so, I tell that story, because I realized too that so many people are suffering in silence, like I did for so long, and feeling like you're on an island all by yourself. No one is reaching out to you, no one hears you, no one sees you. And I want people to know that I see you, I hear you, I got you. And I wrote the book that I wrote and doing what I'm doing now as a transformational life coach because I wanted to provide a safe space, no judgment, for people to be able to share um, their deepest pains, whatever their story might be, and let them know that, someone understands, loves them, and, and it's a safe place. Like I said, no judgment. Um, and so that's why I have created the platform that I have, and then I'm using it to share with other women what I went through to become my own rescue, to overcome the adversity, all of the adversity that I had to go through, and to become the person that I am today. So 36 years later, fast forward 36 years later, I am, like you said, a best-selling author, transformational life coach. I'm also a part of 6 other anthologies, presently working on my 7th one called When Grace Found Me. I'm also a TV producer. I have my TV show called Her Liberation, Conversations with Ann Anderson. And the tagline for the show is about wellness, health, and a better quality of life. So we have diverse conversations with a lot of different people, everything that would help women, whoever my listening audience is, to have a better quality of life in every area of their lives. And I'm also a part of another TV show called What is Justice that's coming soon. So, what I realized and what I've learned over the years is that everything that you want is on the other side of your comfort zone. I'm not saying that it's easy to operate in that space, but I am saying that it's worth it. And the only reason that I am where I am today and doing the things that I'm doing is because I made a decision to get out of my comfort zone. And so that's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing today.
And
Scary, but
yes, but it is so important. And you touched on something absolutely vital. Abuse victims, especially children, quite often blame themselves and feel like, there's something wrong with me. I did
right,
something wrong. And even women will feel like it's their fault.
right,
So
exactly.
they need to know that they're not alone. There's a lot
Hmm.
of shame. I think a lot of people,
There is.
yeah, are ashamed to admit that they're
Mm-hmm.
being abused. Now, I my connection's not the best, and you broke up a little bit at the point you were
Oh, no.
describing the time when his hands were around your throat and you were praying, please save me one more time. But I'm sure it took courage to get out of that relationship.
Oh, yes, yes, it did. And, back then it was really crazy in Malou. I had this crazy 3 times rule, like the baseball players, 3 strikes and you're out. That was crazy. I don't recommend that for anyone. Like I said, it was absolutely nuts. Okay. But this was the 3rd time. So I wish I could say that that was the first time when he had his hands around my neck and put my gun to my head. But that was actually the 3rd time.
And that's
And
when you
I have
decided
been let
out.
what exactly, it's time I got to go. Yeah, but we all know, and I don't know if you've heard of, but I have heard of cases where it was the first time that the woman found herself in that abusive type relationship, and that was the only time that she had. Unfortunately, she lost her life. That's why I'm saying that was ludicrous. But I was a child. I didn't know any better. And, unfortunately, during the time that I was coming up, I'm 65 now. So, we weren't, you didn't hear anything about abuse victims or coaches and counselors and all the help, that's out there and available now to women who are going through these kind of things. And what I've noticed though, even with all of that, I mean, I tell myself things would have been a little better. I would have gotten the help that I needed back then if I knew it was available. But that's not necessarily true because so many people, so many women, especially and men today, are not doing that. Like you said, there's continuing to be silent. It causes women and men to lose their voices, basically.
Yes.
And like I said, because of the shame and the guilt, and we tend to blame ourselves, figure that something has to be wrong with us for that to happen to us. We don't want to talk about it. We try to bury it. And instead of dealing with it, I chose to go to drugs for 20 plus years instead, trying to bury it. But I'm here to tell you that that is not the answer, because once the drugs wear off, any of those substances that you try to use to mask your pain or bury it, it doesn't work. As soon as those things wear off, the drugs or whatever, whatever it is that you're going through that cause you pain is staring you right back in the face again. So I was blessed to have once I made that decision, and like I said, and it was very scary. Even during the time when I was dealing with the incest at 10 years old, my stepfather carried a gun. And unfortunately, I was put in a position where he had to pick me up from school and take me home a lot of times. And he would have the gun between us and, constantly threatening me with the gun and threatening to harm or kill anyone, everyone that I love, all of my family, if I would say anything, was to share what was going on. And, so from that time up until the time of the abuse, when I just had enough and I was getting out of that situation, I realized that I had to be very, very careful because that's really one of the worst times in an abusive type situation when you decide that you want to leave, that you need to go. At one point you're too afraid to leave. You're too afraid to leave, and that's why you stay. And then at some point it gets to be where it's just so bad that you're too afraid to stay any longer, and it's time to go. And I was able to do that. I had to leave and go to a different state to do it, but it was worth it because at the same time he was threatening all of my family, anyone that cared about me, everywhere that I tried to go in the city. At the time where we lived, he would show up and it'd be some type of altercation. We unfortunately worked at the same place, worked at GM together at the time, and they tried to put us, how huge General Motors is. Even that was not enough, that was not enough space. The city was not enough space. So I actually ended up leaving the city for a couple of years, about 2 or 3 years before I returned, trying to give, put some space between us, giving him time to cool off, cool down, or whatever. And, before I end up re-entering that city.
It sounds like you did whatever it took
I did.
to get
I
yourself
tried to take
safe.
my family. I got my son, and we left because before that we actually lived in a battered women's shelter for 6 months prior to me leaving. So that was like my first kind of safe haven. I left my home, and that's where I was staying at for 6 months. After that last time when I was beaten so bad, I mean, had a broke toe, foot, eyes I couldn't see, just different, just really banged up pretty good from top to bottom, from head to head to foot, head to
Wow.
foot, toe, literally. And he was, I believe, schizophrenic, bipolar, whatever, and also doing drugs himself, which I didn't realize that at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah,
It, and it's a control thing. Like you mentioned,
very
the
much
most
so.
dangerous part is when they realize you want to leave, they're ready to do anything they
Anything.
have to
Right.
keep you.
Right. And he was very methodical. I tell the story at times and people look at me like I'm crazy because normally when I think when a woman finds herself in an abusive relationship, it starts off pretty soon. Like pretty soon after you meet the person, you know, they show themselves, they start smacking you around or whatever. He didn't do that. We dated, it was lovey-dovey for a whole year, 365 days before he turned into this totally different animal and I saw someone totally different that got physical. But if I be completely truthful, there were signs I just ignored them because I was
Yeah.
young and didn't know any better. And I'm thinking, you know, surely this guy don't mean this. You know what I'm saying? Like his woman don't go to a restaurant and eat by herself. You know, I worked at GM too. Had my own house. You know what I mean? I'm in my late 20s. I'm used to if I get hungry, I just go and eat and stop somewhere and eat. Surely this guy wasn't telling me that I couldn't do that anymore because we were together, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I ignored him. You know, his woman don't wear jeans that don't have pockets on the back. You know, things I never heard of before, because it show her bottom too much. She don't wear white because you can see through it. And I'm like, you know, but then I ended up coming home one day. I had this beautiful white jumpsuit at the time, and it had some little decoration in it. And I came home one day, he had cut it all the pieces and was waxing my car with it.
Oh my goodness. But you know, you're right. You're looking at this relationship with rose-colored glasses.
Right. Hmm.
You seeing what you want to see, and
Yes.
you don't always catch those subtle. And I understand too, you know, the man may apologize profusely. I'm so
Oh
sorry,
my
it will
God.
never happen
Yes.
again.
Oh
But in
yeah.
truth, it escalates.
Right, the honeymoon stage, and mine was a textbook. So, you know, this had never happened to me. I had never read anything or heard anything about abuse
No.
until I found myself in it, right? But it was so funny when I was in the women's battered shelter, they gave me a book to read. And everything that happened, everything I went through was textbook. It's like the first time they hit you once and just one time, and they're really checking to see, you know, if you would take it, how far you would go, like if you would forgive him or, you know, and I didn't realize what at the time what I should have done was try to smack the mess out of him, you know, like jump up and hit him back as hard as I could or something and tell him to get out. But no, you know, he started crying. He fell on his knees and started crying like a baby, begging me to forgive him. You know, he never did this before to anyone. He loved me so much, blah, blah, blah. It just went on and on and on. He hurt me, but he's crying like a baby, right? Like I just hit him, smacked him upside the face. And so, you know, I forgave him. I didn't know any better. I forgave him. And, you know, he did good for a few months, you know, he's, you know, bringing me flowers, you know, just cleaning and washing my car and cleaning up and just doing all these nice things. So lovey-dovey. And then the next thing you know, just out of nowhere for no reason, you know, there it goes again. And, you know, same thing though, you know, they just put it on a little harder, you know, go through the honeymoon stage is what they call it, a little bit longer. So that would last anywhere to 2 to 3, 4 months before. So it was very spaced out over this 3-year period. So the first year, nothing. And the next 2 years, he spaced out when he would get volatile and very physical. You know, otherwise it would just be the little subtle talking and things like that, like don't do this. And, you know, his girlfriend or wife or woman, don't do that, those kind of things, which I just really said I didn't pay a lot of attention to. Like
Yeah.
that sound
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like you gotta be kidding me. You
If,
know,
if,
like you're gonna stop that. I know you're gonna cut that out.
if you had only read that book before you met
I
him,
know, right? I would have known.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
so the first time is one time they hit you, the second time is three times, and then the third time, I mean, they just go all out. It's just crazy. I mean, you could get hit 1,000 times
And
before they decide to stop. And
and
then I guess from that point on, I don't know because I made it through three times, spaced out, and because I had that three times rule, and I was with that person, it worked for me.
yeah,
Like I said, I
yeah.
wouldn't recommend it to anybody else,
But
but it worked for me. I was gone.
and
Yeah.
some abusive relationships end when the woman is killed. So you were
Usually,
fortunate.
exactly. I
You
was
were
very
fortunate to
fortunate.
get out. And
Yes.
and isn't I am glad that we are talking more openly about this. So,
Right.
you mentioned you were young, you hadn't had experience with this. So there
Hmm.
is more education that is so valuable. And
Yes.
talk about the support you would that a woman who is realizing she's in an abusive relationship, what kind of support should she seek? And I'm assuming you talk about that in your coaching, right?
I do talk about that in my coaching. I do also stress that you have to be very, very careful because what you don't want to do is let your perpetrator get wind that you're having those kind of thoughts, that you're thinking about leaving. Or, because the whole thing is about isolation, silencing you. They usually, what he did, my perpetrator, he went through a series of things to isolate me. For instance, any so-called friend that I had, it was always something wrong with them. They didn't have good intentions toward me either. If it was a guy, of course, he wanted to talk to me, and if it was a girl, a female, she didn't mean me any good. If anything, she probably wanted him. So they would come up with all these different things, even my family. So I talked to my mother too much. I spent too much time with my sisters and brothers. You know what I mean? Any friend, of
Mhm.
course, they are a bad person, someone that you shouldn't want in your life. So they isolate you to the point where it's just you and them. Basically, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's just you and them. Ooh, it's just you and them, and so that makes it hard for a woman to talk to anybody because they're telling her the whole time, nobody cares about you but me. I'm the only one who have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of you. I'm the only one to care anything about you. And, they make sure you don't have too many other people reaching out trying to do anything to you for a while because they already know that that's probably not going to work because evidently somebody's in your ear telling you that that's a bad thing. So it makes it very hard for a woman to reach out. That's another one of their schemes to to be able to continue to do what it is that they're doing to the woman or to the man because they've isolated them. First of all, they've cut them off from all their friends and family, and they've just made it a situation where it's just the only person it's okay for her to talk to is him.
Well,
And
and you
he's not
mentioned
gonna.
you also touched on something that we don't always want to admit, but men can be abused too.
Oh yeah, and it's probably even worse for them on some level than it is for women, being that they are men supposed to be strong and tough and take care of everything and that kind of thing, and then to have a woman abusing them like that, beating them on a regular basis, degrading them, just castrating them with their voices, with their mouth, and whatever else, even being physical as well. So yeah, I can't imagine a man trying to, I'm being abused by my wife or my girlfriend. At least it's more commonly known and understood. Yeah, of course, a woman is being abused and beaten by her husband or her boyfriend. He's bigger, weighs more, and he's obviously stronger or should be, or is for the most part. But it's still and I've talked to a few men and they go like, so you don't do anything to help men as well? And I would tell them, this is so broad. I felt like I had to choose. I'm a woman, so I chose
Yeah.
to specifically concentrate on helping women. But if I know of men coaches who are also, working with men, I try to turn them onto those guys and things like that. And then there are a lot of general information that they could get from listening to women coaches talking to other women as well that they also need to incorporate. Like the safety thing is really, really key. You want to be safe. So you want to try to reach out to someone very carefully, or at least learn their stuff. You have to be very strategic, and I had to be very strategic about it. It's going to take a little time. It's probably not going to be something you can do overnight. So you're going to have to try to pace yourself and then come up with a plan. If it's anyone that you trust that haven't been maybe just so turned off by the fact that you maybe shut down communication with them for a while, if you can get to them while they're at work or whatever, or something like that, and talk to them, share with them what's going on with you, something like that, or get in touch with an authority. And there is an 800 number that people can call, that people can, they have all that. As far as I know, they didn't have all this when I was going through it, back in the 70s and the 80s. But now, they have all kind of resources. So it's a lot easier. Of course, COVID-19 didn't really help the situation very much, with everybody being
Yes.
stranded in their homes, not able to go outside or talk to anybody.
Domestic abuse
you know,
went up. Yeah.
yeah, so of course that went up, big time. So my heart just went out to all the people, and just put me in a position to start praying more about that situation, because I know that had to be just really
You mentioned
just.
a shelter for battered women that
Mhm.
at one point you went there.
I did. I at the point where I was beaten to a pulp, and he had a gun as well, had my gun to my head. I was blessed that he, just stopped, but he took the gun with him. He had a key to my house, so I didn't know if he was gonna come back and try to finish the job, because he made a lot of threats. So I felt like, as soon as I realized he had left and wasn't there, that I needed to call someone and try to get out of there. And so I I did know about at the time that they did have a shelter for battered women by the time I was in my late 20s
Yeah.
and going through this. So I called that number, and they told me to just come right on in and told me what to do. And I did what they said and got there, and I was there for the next 6 months. And after probably a couple of weeks, I ended up bringing my kid there to stay there with me, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and that was, they didn't really, they didn't tell me what to do, but they, of course, gave me the options and, explained to me how abuse works. And like I said, they gave me that book, and it was like I was reading my own story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like really? Like I just went through all of that. Everything that is said, that's exactly
Uh-huh.
what happened to
Yeah.
me.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So I was like,
So you
unbelievable.
so you wrote Butterfly Uprising as a book to help women. You also provide, I'm assuming, private coaching.
I do. I do private coaching as well as group coaching. Yes, the reason that I wrote the book is because at the same time, as tumultuous as my life has been, I've also been one of these people that people have always gravitated to me, strangers, and always telling me their problems was happening with them. And at least I'm gonna say 75, 80% of it was abuse, some type of abuse, either incest, drug addiction, suicide, suicidal, and but it was stemmed from the fact that they were abused. And I realized, for the longest, I couldn't figure out why all these strangers were always coming to me, telling me their story. And a lot of times they would tell me that they never shared that with anyone else but me, a stranger, that, and I didn't ask them, they just started sharing, right? And so at the time, what I would do is to make them feel better and make them feel like they were not alone, is I would share my own story, things that I had gone through and overcome. And so for the longest, these people that I mentored and talked to for years who were sharing their story with me were the only ones who knew my story.
Mhm.
And eventually I realized, well, maybe I should tell my story, let people know. Because I felt like I was helping people, they were saying stuff like they felt better after talking to me and they decided they didn't want to kill themselves anymore and, that kind of thing. So I was having a lot of success just sharing my story, being open and vulnerable with all of these strangers like they were being with me. And it seemed to give them some peace, comfort, and, make them change their minds or take on a little different perspective about what they were going through. And by the time at some point when this started happening, I had been in the church. So I had had the spiritual awakening, had learned the word and realized a lot more things about myself and my own experiences, the things that I had gone through, that God does not waste any of our experiences. And I realized that He had been with me the whole time, even as a child. He didn't make those things happen, He allowed them to happen. He knew that at some point I would be here today sharing my story. I would write the book and I would be trying to help other women to overcome those same adversities that I have gone through and overcome myself. And so I decided to go on and write the book. And because I wanted to make more of an impact on people's lives, particularly women, and let them know, like I said, that I'm a safe place, no judgment, that they can share. If I did it, they can do it. The things that God has done for me, He's no respecter of person. If He did it for me, He would do it for them as well. And so I just wanted them to know that I was hoping that it would give them comfort. So the book, Butterfly Uprising, is about the metamorphosis of one woman's life's journey through interlocking stories of incest, drug addiction, and domestic violence. It was creatively written to correlate with the developmental stages of the butterfly through the maturation of Alexander Scott, who is my character in the book. So it's funny, it's triumphant, it's also faith based. And ultimately, it speaks about our inability, no matter what it is that we go through, to prevail through God's undeniable grace. Because I realized it's God's grace that got me through all the things that I was able to overcome, all the adversity, all those years of depression and feeling unwanted, unloved, and alone and afraid, and all those kind of things, and just not loving myself and treating myself the best. So I ended up writing a book. And I realized too that I had been mentoring and coaching women for 20 plus years out of the goodness of my heart, taking women into my home. I've taken a couple of women into my home, one of them with babies. You know, I was blessed to have a husband at the time who obviously just saw that that was a ministry that God had gave me, something He put on my heart to do. And so I didn't get any flack from him. He just opened our home up to these women who needed my help. And, I just kind of nurtured them to a place of help, where they could um, at least see light at the end of the tunnel and realize that they were not damaged goods, that they had purpose, that they had a testimony, and that the things that they went through, just like me, it was for somebody else, somebody that they supposed to help. They are supposed to do the same thing like I'm doing, share their story at some point. Once they heal to that point where they can do it and not fall apart, then they could share their story, let somebody else know. Because I won't be able to reach everybody, and there's certain people who won't receive from me, but they would receive from them. So I realized that I'm supposed to help a certain group of people. I am the perfect person to help those people. And I realize all of us have a duty. We all have a story. Like, their story may not be the same as mine. They may not know what it feels like to lose your innocence at 10 years old, or to find yourself, single parent and divorced in your early 20s, or find yourself being a drug addict, addicted to drugs for 20 plus years, or in an abusive relationship with your gun put to your head. But we all have a story still, so, and there's a lot of the things that, people can go through or can happen to us that can cause us to be stuck, and not moving forward, not growing, not changing, not evolving, and not healthy and not happy and living a life to the fullest, or being the best version of ourselves. So my coaching program is I help women to change their lives from head to toe, inside and out, by letting go of their fears and their past, using simple techniques that have powerful results, so that you can break free from your self-critical thinking, control your thoughts and feelings, master your emotions, achieve your ideal body, build lasting, healthy relationships, and find the confidence to reach your highest potential, design the breathtaking life of your dreams, and to maximize all of your life experiences to become unstoppable. And that's the journey that I believe that I'm on, and that's why I created the Unstoppable Women Network group, to provide information for them to be able to do the same thing, because we're all a combination of everything that we've gone through, everything that we've overcome, good and bad. The foundational scripture for my life and for my business is Romans 8:28. I really, truly believe that. Is that all things work together for the good of those who love Christ. So I believe all of the things, the good things, the bad things, everything that has happened to me has brought me, helped to shape me into the woman that I am today, and having the heart that I have, wanting to serve and do the things that I'm doing today. And so I feel like all of us have had that on some level, and we all have a divine purpose as well, with the things that God has entrusted with us, the information that He's entrusted with us, the things He's allowed us to achieve, the adversity, the pain He's allowed us to overcome, get over, and how we were able to do that. I believe that we're supposed to share it. Anything good, we're supposed to share it with other people. And so that's what I'm doing.
Well, just listening to you, Anne, I can hear this feeling that this is your ministry, that this is what God has called you to do, and how large your heart must be, how caring and compassionate to want to serve others, teach them, to reach out to others, and to share, rather than the misery and pain you went through, to share the hope, the light of truth, and a better way. And
Right.
this world really needs people like you, Anne. And like you said, we've just been through a pandemic where domestic violence spiked. I'm sure we have a lot more damaged souls
Oh my God.
that need this help, this nourishing. So how do people contact you?
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, I can be reached at butterflyuprising.com is my website. And I'll also give my email address, because hey, reach out to me, coach.anneanderson@gmail.com. It's coach.anneanderson@gmail.com. And then of course, my book, you can find it at amazon.com. And then I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those social platforms as well.
And we'll have all the links on my podcast post.
Okay.
And thank you so much. You are going to bless so many lives.
Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate you for allowing me to speak. And I really do pray that I was able to say something to help someone out there who's listening. Know that I understand fear is a real thing, but we know what it stands for, what false evidence appearing to be real. So I do understand that whether it's real or imagined, it can paralyze people and cause them to be stuck and not move. But I want you to know, like one of my mentors always says to me, and something that she says all the time, Lisa Nichols, is that the pen is always in your hand. And so you have the ability to create the reality that you want. You can design your life just the way you want it to be, because you deserve that. You deserve that breathtaking life. It's your birthright. And so I'm hoping that by me sharing my story with you, that it would inspire you, give you the confidence to not continue to live in fear, allow fear to hold you hostage to your pain, your story, anything that you've gone through, dealing with, possibly in silence. Please let somebody know. Know that there's someone out there who cares, who want you to share your story with them, or help you to get your story out there so you can share it with others, so you can be a blessing and help others while you bless and help yourself as well.
Beautiful words. And thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you. You do the same.